The cabin lights dimmed as Flight 782 climbed into the night sky. A soft hush settled over the passengers, a mix of business travelers, families, and weary souls seeking a quiet escape in the clouds. In row 12, by the window, Emily Carter rested her head against the seatback, finally letting her eyes close. For the first time in days, she felt a fragile peace. Emily had flown countless times before, but tonight, exhaustion weighed her down heavier than any suitcase. She had been awake for nearly 36 hours, juggling work deadlines and a sudden trip home after her mother's health scare. Her blonde hair, tied back in a messy bun, had come loose, and her hands were still faintly ink-stained from the notes she scribbled on the train to the airport. The moment her seatbelt clicked, she surrendered to sleep. But sleep didn't last. An unfamiliar voice crackled over the intercom, breaking the calm with a tension no one could miss. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice faltered, breaking slightly before he steadied it again. "This is an unusual request. If there is a pilot on board, please make yourself known." The cabin froze. Conversations died mid-sentence, earbuds slipped out, coffee cups rattled slightly in trembling hands. Flight attendants exchanged sharp, worried glances, whispering urgently into their headsets. Emily stirred awake at the announcement. For a moment, her mind blurred between dream and reality. Then she caught the words again, louder this time in her memory. A pilot? Her breath caught in her throat. She wasn't just a passenger. She was one of the youngest commercial pilots to have ever flown for her airline before she left the cockpit 2 years ago. And yet, in this moment, she felt the weight of the past pressing on her chest. She remembered why she left. The accident. The storm over Denver. The panic attack that nearly froze her mid-flight. Though no lives were lost, Emily carried the shame like a scar, convincing herself she didn't belong in the air anymore. She'd walked away, turned in her uniform, and never looked back. Until now. Row 12 seemed to shrink around her as the murmurs of the passengers grew. A toddler began to cry, his mother rocking him anxiously. A man leaned forward, asking loudly, "Did he just say pilot? Is something wrong with our plane?" Emily's heart pounded. She pressed her palms against her knees, grounding herself, whispering inside, "Don't do this. Don't stand up. You can't." And then she heard it, the voice of the head flight attendant, urgent, trembling, not meant for passengers but spilling through the thin curtain from the galley. "Captain, your co-pilot's not well. He's unconscious. We've got no backup." Emily closed her eyes. The cabin seemed to wait, every second stretched into eternity. The captain's voice came again, more desperate now. "If anyone here has flight experience, please, this is a matter of safety." Emily's hands shook, but another thought surfaced. Her mother's voice from just a day ago, weak in a hospital bed but steady as she gripped Emily's hand. "You were born to fly, Emmy. Don't ever let fear take that from you." She stood. Her knees wavered, but her voice came out firm, louder than she expected. "I'm a pilot." Every head turned. Row 12, once invisible, became the center of the universe. Gasps rippled through the cabin, and a dozen pairs of hopeful eyes locked on her. "Over here!" shouted a man in the aisle, pointing toward her as if presenting a hero. Emily stepped into the aisle, heart hammering, legs stiff, but determination carrying her forward. A flight attendant rushed toward her, relief flooding her face. "This way," she urged, guiding Emily swiftly past the wide-eyed passengers. Behind her, a teenager whispered, "She doesn't look like a pilot," but his mother hushed him. Another man whispered a prayer under his breath. Inside the cockpit, the air was tense, heavy with the smell of electronics and adrenaline. The captain, pale with strain, looked up as Emily entered. His co-pilot slumped unconscious in his chair, oxygen mask pressed against his face. The captain's eyes widened. "You're Emily Carter, former first officer, Delta Regionals." Her voice wavered slightly. "I haven't flown in 2 years." The captain stared at her for a beat, as though measuring the truth in her words. Then he nodded sharply. "That's still 2 years more than anyone else on this plane. Sit down." Her hands brushed against the familiar switches, the worn edges of the yoke. Muscle memory stirred like an old friend waking from slumber, but fear clung to her ribs. "Altitude's stable," the captain explained quickly. "Autopilot's holding, but we're running into turbulence ahead, and I don't know if I can manage it alone." Emily inhaled, the oxygen mask cool against her skin. "I'll help." Her fingers danced over the controls, checking instruments, recalibrating gauges. The motions returned, shaky at first, then smoother, steadier. She remembered the rhythm, the feel of the plane responding like a living thing. Outside the cockpit door, the cabin rocked slightly with a pocket of turbulence. Passengers clutched armrests, some whispering prayers, others holding hands with strangers. The tension was palpable, but so was the flicker of hope. Minutes dragged like hours. "Winds are shifting," the captain muttered. "We'll have to reroute, maybe attempt an emergency landing in Chicago." Emily nodded. "We can do it. Let's bring her down steady." As the turbulence worsened, Emily felt her panic rise like bile. The memory of Denver, the storm, the frozen terror in her chest. It threatened to consume her again. Her vision blurred for a second, her breathing ragged. "No, not this time." She gripped the yoke tighter. "I've got it," she whispered, then louder, steadier. "I've got it." The captain glanced at her, then nodded. Together, they maneuvered the aircraft through the turbulence, banking carefully, descending toward safety. In the cabin, whispers turned into hushed silence as the plane steadied. Parents clutched children tighter, strangers exchanged nervous but grateful smiles. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the runway lights of Chicago appeared through the windshield like a string of salvation in the darkness. "Runway 27L, the tower's voice crackled through. Emily's breath caught, then she exhaled, steady and focused. "Copy that. Approach set." Her hands guided the plane, every nerve in her body alive, every memory of training firing back into place. The wheels kissed the runway with a gentle thud, smoother than she dared to hope. The cabin erupted into cheers, sobs, applause that shook the walls. Emily slumped back, tears brimming in her eyes. The captain turned to her, voice thick with gratitude. "You just saved 180 lives." But Emily shook her head, whispering more to herself than anyone else. "No, they saved me." When the passengers finally disembarked, dozens stopped to thank her, some with tears, some with trembling hands clasped over hers, some with nothing more than an overwhelmed smile. A young girl tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide with awe. "I want to fly like you someday." Emily knelt, smiling through her exhaustion. "Then promise me you will." And as she walked back through the emptying cabin, her gaze fell on row 12. The seat where fear had almost kept her silent. The seat where she had almost stayed hidden. But she hadn't. She had flown again, and she wasn't afraid anymore.